How do you feel like your identity now influences your teaching approach?
So I don't, I think that my identity as a teacher is always evolving. Um, I will say that as a dancer, I never considered myself to be a ballet dancer. And I've taught more ballet than I ever thought I would teach ever. Like if you had told me 10 years ago that you're going to be teaching more ballet than you are modern, my 20-year-old self would not have believed you. Um, yeah, I definitely think that there is this presumption just in life that if you're good at something, that must mean you like it enough to practice it, therefore you're good at it. Or that if you're bad at something, that means you don't like it. But in reality, we all know that that's not true. In reality, like sometimes like we are bad at things, but we still enjoy doing them. And like you can enjoy something and be like not so great at it or not so proficient at it. Or you could be really, really skilled at something, but not be really passionate about it at all. And I'm sort of like in the middle with like teaching ballet, where it's like I came from a culture and a lineage where even if you wanted to be a contemporary dancer, it the it was designated that you had to know classical ballet first. It didn't mean you were going to be a ballet dancer. It just meant that like you that was sort of like how you got there. It's not like that anymore. A lot of dancers who are coming up as contemporary dancers, like you could do whatever kind of dance. Some people just start in contemporary. Um, I definitely think that it'll probably come up later on in another question, but I think that my identity as a professional dancer is important. There are a lot of teachers here who are professional dancers, and then there are people who just went into teaching after being students or going to college. And I think that a little bit of there needs to be a gap bridged in terms of understanding each other's experience when I'm working with people who don't have my experience and I don't have theirs. Different paths, different circumstances. I'm very lucky to have had, I grew up in Connecticut, and then when I went to college in New York City, you know, that's 2 hours away. I went to school out of state, but like it's in the area. I didn't have to fly there. Um, and I could have this be exposed to the New York professional dance world and, know all the famous people and things like that. And some people were in like the Midwest and maybe they didn't have access to all that. And their experience of dance is being a kid and being a student, young dancer, and then becoming a teacher, but not necessarily having professionally danced before that, like in the in-between time. So I definitely think the identity of being a teacher that is still a working artist in terms of like me dancing is very specific. It's not something that it's not an experience that the teachers that taught me growing up had. So I didn't necessarily have a lot of people who could mentor me in that until I went to a dance intensive over the summer called Earl Mosley's Institute of the Arts, where I met people who had a little bit more like extensive dance careers and were working artists and choreographers who were also teachers. And that's how I was able to like be exposed to like what that life is like. But growing up, I based on my experience before I became a professional dancer, the mentality kind of was the people who were teachers were the people that didn't become professionals for whatever reason. And whether it's by choice or like, things like that, different life circumstances, different things you want to do with your life, very understandable why you don't want to make all your income from dance because it's hard. But, And a lot of my teachers were amazing people. A lot of them they worked in arts high schools. They were social workers. They were, they had their like, all these careers, and they were also dance teachers, but that's a different life than being a working dance artist, out in the field and then coming into the studios, some of them in the suburbs, some of them in like the urban areas. That's a lot for that one answer. There is more that I could get into, but yeah, I definitely think that there's being a working artist, and then there's also the before necessarily getting into race, just class differences. I work at a lot of different studios that you have studios where there are families that are very rich. You have families that are very low income. And I'm sort of always code switching between these different worlds. And I come from a world that's kind of in the middle of all of that. And so being able to be multilingual in terms of relating to people from different economic backgrounds has definitely been very helpful. That is a lot of work in and of itself to, keep all of these different things in mind. We're all human. Dance is very hard regardless of what opportunities you have access to. Um, but I think the mindset of where dance fits into people's lives is different depending on your socioeconomic standing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I love that you're bringing up like all these different facets, because there's like it's a very broad question, like your identity. I mean, there's so many avenues we could go down. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, really great insights.